Welcome to Franchise Whispering Podcast, brought to you by Franchise Marketing News. Very excited about the episode today. Super relevant in this world right now. I can't wait to get to it. It's about local marketing activation, and we're here with Katherine LeBlanc, currently a fractional CMO, 13 plus years as a CMO, deep roots in the restaurant QSR space, formerly marketing lead at Smoothie King and New Orleans, resident born and bred. So
Mhm.
congratulations to that. And thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thanks, Bob. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, so to kind of take us
Yeah,
through your background a little bit. Obviously,
sure.
growing up in New Orleans, it is such a restaurant, maybe the best
Yes,
place on the planet for food.
I
So
agree. Yeah.
it's kind of in your blood, right?
It absolutely is in my blood and in my family. I married a chef, so the deep roots are beyond just my career for sure. But yeah, so I started my marketing career 20 years ago, and building a marketing career in New Orleans, like in many small towns, is difficult because there's not a lot of big brands here.
Sure.
And the opportunities can be limiting. And so I've been so fortunate and blessed to have built a career to the point where I'm now a fractional CMO for franchise brands. And as you mentioned, kind of stumbled into franchise brands through Smoothie King. They were based in New Orleans for a long time and joined their team at a time where they were shifting. They had just been acquired and they were shifting their brand, almost re-emerging in a new space with a new story, still the founder story, but told in an updated way, and really brought to life that story through marketing. And the way we did that was through our new product strategy, as well as unifying the brand around one message, and really driving that message home. And I think, we'll get into that today when we talk about how local store marketing and local owners need to carry that through into their local markets. But it was a fantastic experience and really exposed me to the world of franchising. And through that, then joined a number of different franchise brands, not just in the food space, but I was with Painting with a Twist. I was with a med spa brand. I was with a home service adjacent brand, a fitness brand in the CMO seat. And so spent 8 years and have been spending the last 8 years in the CMO seat. And in the last 6 years have really focused and found myself in the builder mode. So taking brands from one location to starting their franchise process, as well as brands that are in that in between stage where they need to kind of bust through to get to their next stage of growth. So that's kind of a snapshot of my career and kind of where I've been, so that landing where I am now in a spot to now advise and consult with franchisors to, at any stage of their growth, I really have the breadth of experience, not just through industry, but also through those life stages.
No, that's your experience is vast, and I think you're probably the envy of a lot of people in the audience by having married a chef also. So
I
that
can attest it's amazing.
that that hits home with a lot of people. That sounds nice. Now, when we were kind of talking before the podcast and that type of thing, one of the from our agency standpoint and seeing a lot of brands in the food spaces, we you had the build up to COVID, and
Mhm,
it didn't seem like you know, for an agency like us, that digital transformation was happening fast enough. We were kind of
mhm,
at
mhm.
curve too cool for the room for a while. COVID hits and bang, everybody's like, okay, let's digitally transform in the QSR food space franchise. And so now everybody's kind of all digital mediated out and, putting the tech stack together, some better than others, some, having more success than others.
Mhm,
But it seems like the kind of the old traditional letting the franchisees know what to do on the ground,
mhm.
things that built Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, all these,
Yeah,
franchises way back in the day has almost been forgotten. And so tell me what you're
yeah.
seeing with that.
Well, I see it happening on 2 different levels. So, in the construct of franchising, corporate marketing builds the brand and your local marketing builds your business, right? And so where I exactly what you're saying, kind of both parties have now started depending on one channel and one activity in that channel to do both activities. And in fact, that channel can't actually do the activity. It is really just a mechanism for a message, right? And that's that digital channel. And so what gets lost on the corporate marketing side is we've stopped the art of storytelling. And, I have to say, I would throw up in my mouth sometimes when we would talk about, we need to tell the brand story, or we have a great story, we're just not telling it. I mean, that is what we said ad nauseum back before COVID, and how we brought brand to life was through that storytelling. And
Sure.
then that shift, right, of, okay, well, maybe we don't need storytelling because we're getting all of this business without doing it through the digital channels. And now it's been lost, right? And what we're seeing is because we took our eye off the ball from the corporate marketing side on the storytelling, now 3, 6, 7 years later, we are losing efficiency in our digital media. We're losing efficiency in all of our media because we haven't told the story of why you should care. And then on the local side, a similar thing is happening where, especially in restaurant marketing, and, Bob, I have to say, I tried digital in restaurant marketing for a long time in a bunch of different ways, and it was not catching. And so the idea that digital is such a big piece of the pie in restaurants right now is so interesting to me. But because it's become kind of an easy button for franchisees, we've forgotten the muscle that it takes to build a brand in the local market. And so, the way I think about it is the brand needs to tell the consumer that they are knowable, likable, and trustable. That's through developing a logo that they like, developing messaging that they like. And then that messaging then translates into becoming likable and trustable. What the brand can't do is develop that knowable, likable, trustable within your local market. Because as much as the brand can be that thing that people gravitate towards, people want to buy through people. And so it's your responsibility as the local owner to really go out and tell the story of, why do you want to buy from me, not just buy from the brand, right? And so the brand is going to amplify the efforts that you have in the local market. And so to me, we've abandoned kind of two tenets of marketing that is the reason why the digital was so successful to begin with, because we invested all of this time and money into building the brand, both on the local level and the corporate level. And we've kind of abandoned that. And now it's come to a reckoning, right? I think that we can all say the last 3 years, lead generation across all industries has, gone down, down, down. And we're all scratching our heads, changing agencies, chasing AI to fix it. When in reality, I think we need to go back to the basics.
And how do you, get the franchisee, it's the KLT model, like you said, knowledgeable,
Hmm.
likable, trustable. How do you get the franchisee to realize how important this is?
Yeah.
What are you doing next month, next quarter? And let's talk about it again down the road to make sure things are getting executed in that arena.
I think the first thing is to really be honest about what they should expect from their corporate marketing team. Marketing is one of the lowest rated disciplines or departments in the FBR survey that comes out every year, right? The marketing, the feeling of marketing. I was talking to a franchisee last week, and it was not with a brand that I'm part of, but they were exasperated of, the marketing just doesn't feel like it's working. And, what my response to that is to say, okay, well, let's break down what the responsibilities are for the corporate marketing team versus what your responsibilities are as a franchisee. The responsibility of the corporate marketing team is to create the brand. It is to invest in long-term sustainable brand building activities so that your investment today is going to increase over time when it's time for you to exit. They are also responsible for developing the infrastructure so that you can thrive, right? I always talk about corporate should be amplifying your efforts. If you don't have efforts to amplify, it is going to fall flat.
Sure.
And so really understanding, what can corporate do? Well, corporate can create the brand, they can create brand assets, they can create the marketing calendar, they can create promotions, and they can cascade best practices from the system to you as a local franchise owner. They cannot go out and shake hands and kiss babies on your behalf. They cannot go out and hand out samples and be present at the local community events that are really going to make a difference in your community. And so, number one, it's, what should I expect out of my corporate team? Number two is, what what is my responsibility? Your responsibility is to be out in the local community so that you are the person that people are buying from. And whether or not it's you, it's your representation of the brand, right? So being part of where the community is, where your customer is in that community, be present there. Look, and we can reference Smoothie King again. Smoothie King was built on sampling. It was built on the pioneer franchisees going out into the market and getting food in mouths. And so if you are not, whatever your category is, if you're not laser focused on how am I getting this amazing food that I bought a brand because the food is amazing into the mouths of the people that are going to buy it, that you're missing out. You're missing an opportunity to really build it. And I think the third piece is understanding how, as a franchisee and as a corporate team, how we should interact and collaborate together instead of being adversarial. Because when we collaborate, great things happen. The best ideas come from the field. I mean, Frappuccino, right? Like the best field developed story ever. The best ideas come from the field. And without a collaborative relationship, it does automatically turn to adversarial. And the example is, a marketing program that gets rolled out and you hate it. It's not going to work in your market. And so you fire off an email that's just, this was a terrible idea. Well, as the marketing, someone who has sat in the CMO seat and gotten that email, for me, I'm like, okay, well, he hates it. It's not going to work for everybody. I'm just going to move on to the next thing because he hasn't given me anything tangible to really react to, right? So give me 3 reasons why it's not going to work for your market. This flavor doesn't work during this time because of this. This execution on my operationally doesn't work because of this. This, whatever it is, right? It just doesn't work for me. Well, now going into next year, I know, okay, well, this part of the country isn't ready for my, pumpkin flavored cupcake until August or needs to have it in August versus October, whatever it is. Now I can make adjustments to the strategy instead of just saying, well, Bob always hates what we do. And so we're never going to make him happy. And, we can't change that.
No, that is, I think that if you had something to coach franchisees on, is criticism is warranted and welcome, but if it can be constructive, yes, this isn't going to work,
Mhm.
but here's what has been great here.
Right.
Let's just
Yes.
let's just push boulders downhill. This is what works in my market. This is what I'm seeing.
Mhm.
And then additionally, I loved your examples of Smoothie King and the sampling type of thing. Because not only is that a person giving somebody a gift and doing that and raising the brand from a trust standpoint, because you can't trust a slice of pizza, you can't trust a
Right. That's
Jamaican
right.
patty, you can't trust a cheeseburger, but you can trust a person. And that trust is built on that little local interactions of, giving somebody something, and I think that right now is another thing that's kind of missing.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other kind of wrench that the kind of the digital revolution created was the lack of appreciation for the long-term game, right? And so in this age, right, we are constantly getting feedback around instant gratification. We are getting our packages same day, when we order from Amazon. We are getting our Netflix stories. We don't have to wait for next week for that episode to drop. And so in that moment of instant gratification that comes over to the business world, because that transactional media, digital media, which is it can be awareness, but it's also kind of focused on that transaction where I'm putting $1 in and getting $2 out tomorrow. That's what I want. And then what I'm not investing in is the long-term kind of momentum building activities that are going to ensure that the transactional activity, the instant gratification maintains. Because if you're only investing in instant gratification from a business perspective, from a marketing perspective, that return on investment declines over time if you haven't made the bigger investments in the brand building, the community engagement, the relationship building. And so I do think that's another kind of reason why we are focused and obsessed with digital is because we are getting the instant gratification and we don't see it until it's too late. And actually, what happens is we see the decline of efficiencies in digital and we point to digital as the reason for the decline of efficiencies. We point to, we need a new agency. We need to, change our creative. We need to completely pivot our messaging. And in reality, what's happening is that you haven't invested in the non-digital activities that create sustainability in the efficiency of your media. And so it's kind of that understanding that gets lost. And I think that's contributes to we are kind of stuck in this obsession.
No, and with the, kind of continuing with that conversation, when a new franchise comes on, it's discovery day, they're learning, they're being educated. And, the first question that comes out of their mouth is always, what do the most successful franchisees do? How do you answer, that question for them? What does that look like from your, let's be great experience?
Yeah, and I love this question during Discovery Day because I feel like in Discovery Day you're talking to franchise prospects with a clean slate. They don't know anything yet, right? So it's my opportunity to say the most successful franchise openings, the most successful franchisees started marketing from the time that they signed their franchise agreement because they are telling their friends what they are doing. They are building community before they even have a location to build from. And then once they sign that lease, they are in overdrive talking to people about where they are and what they are doing and why they are doing it. So the most successful openings happen when that franchisee has invested in those relationships and spreading the word about their brand before their doors even open. Now, to continue that, the most successful franchisees that I have seen do two things. They overinvest in marketing. When you get your FDD and you have a 2% brand fund and a 2% local store marketing fund, that is the bottom of what you should be spending. That is not the ideal, the optimized of what you should be spending. Your first 2 years in business, you need to be spending 15 to 20% of your revenue or your projected revenue or what you want to make on marketing. And you can taper that down, right? So year 4, 5, 6, 7, now you're getting to the total all in 4% spend. But in the beginning, you need to build up so that you can really ride the wave of that momentum later on in your life cycle. And so they are getting the word out early. They are over investing in their marketing in the beginning, and not only over investing from a dollar perspective, but over investing in the kind of sampling and relationship building perspective. Specifically for food brands, I want you laser focused on getting food in mouth. Like that is what you should be doing for the first 2 years that you are open. Get that delicious food in as many mouths as possible. I was talking to a franchise marketer yesterday around their marketing program, and they've been blowing out their marketing program, and we're all clamoring like, what are you doing? This is amazing. They're hitting 1,000 people before they even open the doors with their food. Like, is there a way for you to do that, right? And that's what's building, this is good. I need to add this to the list. I need to go to them when they're going to be opening. And so it's the sampling. And if you don't have food, you need to figure out what is your sampling program, right? So how are you bringing your activation into the community? And then it's relationship building. And, I think the simplest example, there's two simple examples I can think of. One is 5-star experience. If you don't think your operations is your number one marketing tool, you are sorely mistaken. If you can deliver a 5-star experience, you're creating advocates in your consumer and you're creating that word of mouth advertising that truly will bring you to the next level. And then the second thing is very simply one-on-one relationship building. Take the neighbor, your location neighbor out for coffee. Take your council person out for coffee. Take your coach of the football team out for coffee. You're not only developing a one-on-one relationship with this person, but like I said, people want to buy for people. People want to root for you, right? And so if you can get them on board and rooting for you, you've now talked to one person who's going to talk to 5 people about your business. And that one person is going to come back to you and say, you know what? We need a sponsor for next year's football season. Would you be interested? Whereas you might not get that opportunity if you hadn't developed that relationship. And so those are some simple ways I think that franchisees can put one foot in front of the other and build the momentum for their local store to be successful.
Love that. And one of the things in kind of the digital, you know, post COVID, everything's gone digital. That's where a lot of it is moved. And one of the pockets is influencer marketing. That
Yes.
is the big thing everybody's got to get in. Tell me your experience with that, your opinions on it.
It's hard. That's my experience. There's a couple of things that make it hard. Influencer marketing has gone through it has is cyclical just like anything else. And I am happy to see that the like over demands of influencers for their content has reached a bit of a plateau that's a little bit more palatable. And what I mean by that is influencers with 1,000 people following them are asking for $1,000 for every post, right? Like that's not sustainable. And so that has kind of gotten to a more normalized level, which is good. And I think that what I've seen, I don't think that we've figured out influencer marketing yet. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of platforms and a lot of tools that you can use to engage influencers. There are agencies that specialize in engaging influencer marketing. And the idea that you are going to be able to go viral with one influencer activation is misplaced, right? And so from a franchisee perspective, what I encourage you to do is to think about the influencers in your space. They don't need to be online, right? And so, for example, the local college football coach, the chief of police, the chief of the fire station. Can you get them into your establishment and give you a review and you record it and then post it on your channels? And so now you have a community influencer on your channels without having to go like how do you find influencers, right? Go on Instagram and search for people in your neighborhood that are doing the things, right? And so again, kind of trying to take it out of the digital realm and more in the real life realm of what are some real life influencer engagements that you can think of that are beyond somebody's Instagram handle. And if you get the college football coach to post on their own channel about their burger that they love, how much more play is that going to have? Because even if they only have 500 followers, those 500 followers care about what that football coach say. So on the local side, I would say that I want you to focus more about who is your customer? Where are they? And how are you talking to them? Are you at their community event? Are you talking to the people that influence them? Are you talking to them specifically? On the brand side of things, I think that there's other things that we could and should be doing. And that's where we get into brand awareness and how are we leveraging national and micro influencers to impact the brand awareness top of funnel activations for our franchisees. And like I said, that space right now is incredibly fragmented. I think some brands have figured it out. I can't claim to be part of one of the brands that have figured it out because frankly, influencer marketing has overwhelmed me in a way that, it's hard for me to approach budget, like how much budget I should be spending here and how much impact am I really going to get through influencer market. So I prefer to have the franchisee focus on that kind of local grassroots, you know, person to person influencer. And on the brand level, I am typically asking another expert to come in and fix my influencer program.
No, I think the influence. Well, first off, when we're dealing with clients, even today, it's interesting. Somebody will be like, "Yeah, we're using Facebook, we're using TikTok, and they might be using it organically. They're not using it paid. They're a lot of people are still trying to tie that. Oh,
Mhm.
I'm doing TikTok. Well, you're not using the paid and the search mechanism is very good for the restaurant space right now. That.
Mm-hmm.
I think where people get tied up in the influencer thing is what you said beautifully is the user generated content side of thing, getting that football coach, getting that principal, getting that person in your store and doing that versus trying to find this home run thing over here,
Yes.
which I find in the franchise food space that influencers and their business model actually fight against the franchise food space. Because if I'm an influencer and I'm a good influencer, I don't care if my person is from Brazil, Chicago, or China that
Mm-hmm.
likes me. So
Mm-hmm.
how do
Right.
you, and
Correct.
that's how I monetize
Mm-hmm.
everything. So how do
Mm-hmm.
you get somebody in Sunrise, Florida to do that for you? And so that's the influencer side of things, is the user generated content side of things. And I think once brands understand that, yes, it's influencer in some sort of sense, but the tactics are much, much different. They can start to play.
Yeah, well, and I think you bring up a great point. So I think there's a clear delineation between influencer marketing and user generated content. User generated content is absolutely something that you should invest in and leverage because it is one of the only things that is performing on paid media right now. And so you can develop a user generated pipeline content strategy that is not necessarily an influencer strategy, right? Because your influencer strategy is how many people am I reaching? Is this going to go viral? Whatnot. Your user generated content is a content strategy, and it's one that you absolutely should be investing in because it is the only thing that's working on paid right now.
Yeah, no, and they're both getting kind of they're under this influencer umbrella, and I think it's
Hmm.
getting confusing for brands. And the thing about brands, especially in the QSR and franchise food space, is Dave's Hot Chicken has 5 people in the marketing department. That's a huge brand, so there's just so much work to be done that I think CEOs and CFOs don't quite understand, and that's where the confusion can start because you're just
Well,
trying to do
AI
something.
can do it all, right, Bob?
No, and then to kick it old school, one thing on the influencer marketing that we have seen very successful is, we've got a client, Juicy Patties, international brand coming into the States. They've got 15 locations in Miami now. The only reggae show in all of America right now is a gentleman, Tonto Irie, from 10 to midnight. He spins, reggae records in Miami. So he's got this influencer, which is perfect. We got 15 locations in Miami. He reaches them. We do endorsements with them, but we also put him in the ads. And Tonto is endorsing, and,
Love it.
so that mechanism, and then he's got a regenerative
Hmm.
social group because he's got an audience of 45,000 people that listen to him every week. And,
Hmm.
and that type of, it's this beautiful using kind of kicking it old school with
Yeah.
radio, but then moving it to social media and those type of things so that it can activate. And so
Yeah. Oh, and I think that's a great point because you're not just thinking about that radio show. You're thinking about how am I putting this content across multiple different channels. And that's how you kind of get the ROI that you need through the content creation that you have. Because that content creation is expensive. Even if you're not a well-known influencer, getting somebody to take the camera. Once was interacting with somebody who was a content creator, and I loved what she was doing. And I said, "Hey, I need 3 videos. These are the videos that I need." She wanted like $3,000 for me to have one video to use for 3 months. And I was like, "Well, that I'm not going to get the ROI out of that, right? Like I need it in perpetuity. I need, all of these things."
right.
And so the creators are demanding a hefty penny, but because their product, if you can't use it across 3 different places, then you're underutilizing that content.
So that you have to. So yeah, it's multi-touch world. So allow us
Hmm.
to do that. Well, we're coming up to the end here. This has flown flown by. I could talk to you for another half hour here, but kind of, what are your parting thoughts on the environment right now?
Yeah.
If you could say one thing to a franchisee, please do this well. What would that be?
Well, I think that in general, we've seen the last 18 months in the marketing space has been more disruptive than any other time period that I have seen. And that includes onset of social, the onset of digital media. I was around for both. And so I think that, for marketers, understanding that the world is constantly changing, and to me, the one thing that we need to go back to is some of the basics of how are we building brand and building a reason for people to interact with us on these channels that are constantly changing. And if I were to give one piece of advice to a franchisee, is really to trust the process. Marketing is momentum, and unless you put in the time and resources on a consistent basis over the course of years, you will not reap the benefits of having a really solid business model. And so that's the advice I would give is trust the process, trust the fact that, that one coffee, the next event does lead to something.
No, that's everything builds on everything, right?
Hmm.
And well, Catherine, thank you so much for sharing your vast, vast marketing experience, marketer extraordinaire, married to a chef. I mean, you're
Living the
living
life.
you're living the dream over there. So thank you so much. It's been great to talk to you today, and we'll have to stay in touch and do this again.
That sounds great, Bob. Thank you.
All right, take care.